In May of 22, a cryptocurrency that was designed to never move, to sit always at exactly $1, began to fall. It was called Terra USD, and its whole promise was in the name, a stablecoin, engineered to hold its value no matter what the market did. For a few days, the people who ran it insisted the design would hold. It did not. As the price slipped below $1 and kept sliding, a companion token called Luna went into a spiral, printing itself into near worthlessness. In roughly 72 hours, an ecosystem once valued at more than $50 billion was gone. Investors around the world lost more than $40 billion, and the man at the center of it, prosecutors would later prove, had known for a year that the machine did not work the way he'd told everyone it did. To understand what collapsed, you have to understand what it claimed to be. A stablecoin is supposed to be the calm center of the crypto world, a digital token that always trades at $1 so people can move in and out of volatile coins without cashing back into a bank. Most stablecoins keep that promise the boring way. For every coin, a real dollar sits in a reserve. Terra USD did it differently. It had no cash pile behind it. Instead, it relied on a piece of software, the Terra protocol, and a sister token, Luna, to keep the price pinned to $1 through pure market incentives. Its creators called it algorithmic. Its critics called it a machine that only worked as long as everyone believed in it. The creator was Do Kwon, full name Do Kwon, a young, combative South Korean entrepreneur who co-founded Terraform Labs in 2018. Kwon didn't just build a product, he sold a worldview. He described Terra as a self-contained financial universe with its own money, its own payment system, its own stock market, and its own savings bank, all running on code instead of banks. He was brash online, dismissive of doubters, and for a while wildly successful. To his followers, he was proof that a small team could out-engineer the entire traditional financial system. The magnet that pulled in the money had a name too, Anchor. Launched in early 2021, Anchor was a savings protocol built on Terra that offered a startling return, around 20% a year on Terra USD deposits. At a time when a bank savings account paid almost nothing, 20% was irresistible. Money poured in, much of it from ordinary retail investors who were told this was the safe, stable corner of crypto. The more people who deposited, the bigger and more legitimate the whole system looked. But a 20% yield has to be paid by someone, and that was one of the first questions the skeptics asked. The Terra protocol's design carried a hidden fragility. Keeping Terra USD at $1 depended on people always being willing to trade it for Luna and back again. In calm markets, that worked. But if enough holders tried to sell at once, the mechanism could invert, pushing the price down and flooding the market with newly created Luna, which would crash Luna's price too. Engineers had a name for this failure mode, a death spiral. Kwon publicly dismissed the risk. What he did not tell investors was that the system had already come close to that spiral once, and that he had quietly reached outside the algorithm to save it. That first test came in May of 2021. Terra USD slipped below its dollar peg, dropping under 92 cents. According to the SEC and the Justice Department, the algorithm did not fix this on its own. Instead, Kwon secretly struck a deal with a large high-frequency trading firm, which bought up millions of dollars of Terra USD to prop the price back to $1. Then Kwon went out in public and told the world the opposite story, that the Terra protocol had healed itself automatically, proof the design was sound. Prosecutors called this the central lie. The thing he was selling as self-stabilizing had, in fact, needed a secret bailout to survive. As the system grew, so did the need to look invincible. In January of 2022, Kwon announced the Luna Foundation Guard, a non-profit he described as an independent body that would hold billions of dollars in reserves, much of it in Bitcoin, to defend the peg in a crisis. It was pitched as a war chest run at arm's length from Terraform. In reality, the Justice Department found Kwon controlled the foundation himself, made major financial decisions without its supposed governing body, and treated its funds as interchangeable with his companies, misappropriating hundreds of millions of dollars from it, and then laundering the proceeds through transactions designed to hide where the money went. Underneath the headline products sat a set of quieter deceptions. Terra ran an app called Mirror, which let users trade synthetic versions of real stocks. Kwon claimed it was decentralized and beyond his control, when in fact he secretly ran trading bots to manipulate its prices and inflated its user numbers to look more popular than it was. He pointed to a Korean payment app called Chai as proof that real commerce ran on the Terra blockchain. But Chai actually processed payments the old-fashioned way, and the on-chain activity was faked by copying transactions over after the fact. To fund those manipulations, prosecutors said, Kwon tapped a hidden supply of 1 billion tokens minted at the blockchain's creation, using at least $145 million of them to keep the illusion running. By the spring of 2022, the illusion had become enormous. Terra USD and Luna together were worth more than $50 billion at their peak. The Terra USD market had grown roughly 9 times larger than it had been a year earlier when Kwon quietly rescued the peg. And that scale was the trap. In 2021, a secret purchase of a few $1 million could paper over a wobble. By 2022, the market was far too big for any hidden hand to hold up. The same design flaw was still there. Only now the stakes were measured in tens of billions. In early May 2022, large withdrawals began pulling Terra USD off its peg. This time, nothing worked. As holders rushed to swap Terra USD for Luna, the protocol did exactly what its critics had warned it would. It minted Luna by the trillions to try to absorb the selling, destroying Luna's price in the process. The two tokens dragged each other down together. The Luna Foundation Guard deployed its Bitcoin reserves to defend the dollar peg, and the reserves were swallowed with barely a pause. Within about 3 days, Terra USD was worth pennies, and Luna was effectively worthless. More than $40 billion in investor value had evaporated. The losses were not abstract. Because Anchor had marketed Terra USD as safe, many of the people wiped out were not speculators chasing risk, but ordinary savers who believed they'd found a stable place to park their money. The collapse rippled across the entire crypto market, helping trigger a cascade of failures at lenders and funds through the rest of 2022. It became one of the defining disasters of the era, a reminder that the word stable, printed on a token, guaranteed nothing at all. As governments in multiple countries opened investigations, Kwon publicly promised cooperation. Privately, prosecutors said he did the opposite. In a recorded conversation that summer, he described his strategy toward the authorities in blunt terms, telling an associate, in substance, to tell investigators to get lost and said he was arranging what he called political protection in foreign countries so he could not be extradited. He also, according to the Justice Department, arranged for a misleading third-party audit to be circulated to help paper over what had happened. By early 2023, the walls were closing in. US and South Korean authorities filed charges. An Interpol notice went out. Kwon's whereabouts became an international guessing game. It ended on March 23, 2023, at an airport in Montenegro, where he was arrested trying to travel on a forged passport. What followed was a long extradition fight, with both the United States and South Korea seeking him before Montenegro sent him to face the American case. On December 31, 2024, Do Kwon was extradited to the United States. Then came the criminal case. On August 12, 2025, Do Kwon pleaded guilty in federal court in Manhattan, admitting to conspiracy to commit commodities, securities, and wire fraud, and to a separate count of wire fraud. In his plea, he acknowledged that he had knowingly schemed to defraud the people who bought Terra USD, and he agreed to forfeit more than $19 million. The man who had spent years insisting the doubters were wrong now stood in a courtroom and conceded, in his own words, that the machine had never worked as advertised. On December 11, 2025, Judge Paul Engelmeyer handed down the sentence, 15 years in federal prison. Prosecutors had asked for 12. Kwon's lawyers had argued for 5. The judge went higher than either. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton said Kwon had used the promise of cryptocurrency to commit one of the largest frauds in history. As of this recording, that 15-year sentence stands as the resolution of the U.S. case. Kwon has also faced separate legal proceedings in his native South Korea, a different jurisdiction, with its own process still to run its course. Strip away the code and the jargon, and the Terra story is an old one. A promise of stability and a return too good to be true. A founder who treated public confidence as something to be manufactured. A design so fragile that its survival depended on a lie. The word algorithmic made it sound like the risk had been engineered away. It hadn't. It had only been hidden and then hidden again, with a secret rescue that let the system grow far past the point where anyone could save it. When a product's main asset is belief, the collapse doesn't come slowly. It comes in 3 days. If this story taught you something, subscribe. We publish a new case like this every week, drawn only from court records and public filings. Next time, we follow the money into another empire built on numbers that weren't real. Until then, follow the money.